They said, you want to go to Berlin? And I was like, why not? If I succeed, we succeed. Anything is possible digitally.
Welcome to the iNetworker channel, and thank you very much for having agreed to come to us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So what I heard from you, and also what I read on your page, that curiosity and good fortune brought you to Berlin. Can you explain a little bit more about it?
So curiosity and good fortune definitely brought me to Berlin. My plan was I had worked in New York for around 3 years without a pause, and that was really exciting, really great in my early 20s. But there came a point where I realized I might be getting burned out, so I said, okay, I'm going to go to Spain. I'm going to spend 6 weeks there and just chill, because that was the last time that I had a good trip, was actually in Spain. And then I kind of aimed for Spain and hit Berlin, oddly enough. So I was in Madrid, and I somehow didn't find the rhythm in Madrid. I didn't meet people. Somehow I didn't find the rhythm. And then a friend of mine who lived in Austria gave me a call and said, hey, you want to come to Austria for Christmas party? And I said, well, sure, why not? So I went there for Christmas. It was really lovely, and had a lovely time with her. And then she said, hey, you want to go to Hamburg? We're going to do that for Sylvester, for New Year's.
It's just around the corner.
It's just around the corner.
For an American, for sure.
Yeah, sure. And I was like, yeah, so why not? I had nothing to do. So went there and had a lovely time, drank, partied, and then we woke up hungover on the 1st, and they said, you want to go to Berlin? And I was like, why not? And then that was 2007, and kind of got stuck.
You stayed, yeah?
Yes. I ended up staying in Berlin. I went back to the States very shortly, and then I ended up coming back to Berlin and staying here. So yeah.
Yeah, you said so. Before coming to Europe, so you worked in New York, so
yes.
in New York City.
Yes.
Yeah? So, but you're from Upper New York,
yes.
So New York State.
Yes.
So, and I think these are completely different worlds.
They are different worlds. I am. It's funny because New York State is quite large, and I am still quite southern. I'm in the Catskill Mountains, which is the home of Woodstock and this sort of hippie center. It is also famously known as the place where Dirty Dancing takes place and was filmed. So the hotels that these characters were in they were like maybe 15 minutes away from me. So it takes place in Kutcher's, which no longer exists, but it's close to my heart. So I'm in upstate New York. So Mountaindale is a small village, a very small village, around 900 people, give or take. So.
And how does it feel to come to New York after this small village?
Well, the thing is that my parents are from Brooklyn and Queens, so there was always a relationship with New York. So even as kids, we would always go to New York very regularly. My parents actually decided to live in upstate New York because it was far enough away they can do their own thing, but they were also close enough that they can just take an hour and a half drive and they'd be in New York City proper. And that was kind of the reason why we ended up there. So I always had this close relationship with New York City. So when it came time to go to university, it was pretty clear. It was like, New York. That
was quite natural for you. Okay.
Yeah, it was a natural mix. I find that especially a lot of my friends during high school were because upstate New York has a very strange, this part of upstate New York has a very strange combination. It's mostly Jewish, kind of, for lack of a better term, redneck. There was also at that time bikers and artists and hippies. And in this combination, I was a little bit of my parents were definitely more from the New York artist side of things, and that gave me that connection to New York City, and the rest of my friends were very much more towards the, country folk or hippies, and that made me a little bit special, I guess, in that regard.
So you said that actually, so in the New York City, you were at the brink of burnout or whatever. Yeah. So just and I think that the Americans seem to be workaholics. So just like the Russians. So but this is just because we after the change in Russia, we also accepted the American model. And that's why. So but in my perception, so Germany is a completely different world again. Yeah. And Berlin maybe at a border, so between two worlds. So how do you feel? So have you found your pace here in Berlin?
I have found my peace here in Berlin, and I think that Berlin is a very special place because it is kind of a counter to sort of the standard rules of how Germany works and how the importance of where Germany puts work. Mm-hmm. I mean, coming from New York, like work is very much it is a statement of identity. Mm-hmm. It is a statement of personal drive and what you want to achieve. Mm-hmm. So it's very much like it's something that's considered part of who you are. And what was really interesting in Berlin is that that's not the case. Mm-hmm. In Berlin, you can have friendly, long relationships, and it's like, what did they do again? I don't know. While in New York, it was very much kind of like, hi, nice to meet you. What do you do? That would be always its name, profession, mm-hmm. and then you move on from there. Uh-huh. And I found that Berlin did not have that sort of dynamic. And I found that it was finding the rhythm in Berlin was a little bit difficult because I came from that much more sort of speedy, more driven sort of New York sort of character, I guess. And being in Berlin, it taught me to slow down a little bit mm-hmm. and to find people instead of mm-hmm. working. And I mean, all that being said, thankfully I work plenty in Berlin, so it's good. But yeah, I feel like work is not the primary goal, I think, in the city, and I find it to be really special and really nice.
But why do you think so are the New Yorkers like this? So is it about networking, so just finding connections, or is it just kind of that you need to do something so for living and then so this is part of your identity? So
I think it's New York and the States in general, there's the individualist aspect is very strong, mm-hmm. and it's so strong that even the idea is that, okay, the other part is that New York also has a very solid Dutch corporate underpinning. There's something that's very much if I succeed, we succeed. That's kind of mentality. So the idea of if you have an idea and you drive and you want to do something, then you're going to bring other people into this idea, and the idea will grow and become bigger, and then we'll all become better because of it. Mm-hmm. So I is good for we. And I think that's kind of the thing that drives that New York rhythm, or at least for the time that I was there. Mm-hmm. I know that the relationship with work is changing in the States, and how people feel about it is definitely changing. But the very least in New York that I kind of came up in had that sort of vibe. Berlin, on the other side, has something that is a little bit more, because work's not the primary thing, I think that finding the correct lifestyle is a little bit more of the primary goal. I mean, Berlin has always been, of course, Berlin for the last, not for the last, but for the second half of the 20th century was very much this island city. Mm-hmm. And in that regard, people who didn't want to take part in either side of the either West German General Society or East German General Society, they found their ways here. And this box of misfit toys is kind of what makes it, I think it's given Berlin this particular flavor that is that's very much, I'm here to try something else. Mm-hmm. And I find that it is a wonderful place for people to come and try different things. And I feel like that's what makes this place a little bit more special. Mm-hmm. Is that the drive is I want to try something. And it's not about necessarily succeeding or being the best or anything like that. It's just kind of we see what happens, and I find that to be really, really unique about.
Yeah, just let it go, so to say.
Exactly.
So for me, the American business culture is kind of about experimenting, trying out first, hands-on
yes.
mentality, and so on and so forth. So do you see it in Berlin? So because in general, so I think the Germans are not, so they need theoretical background first, and then they would implement it. So a completely different way,
yes.
In comparison to the Americans.
Absolutely. I think American mentality definitely is more kind of iterative, fail, succeed. And I think that's something that is that's completely fine. I think a good example of that is the fact that a friend had a business that was hit by the 2008 crisis, and it went bankrupt. and he was definitely financially punished because he got unlucky in that regard. Not because he did his business wrong, but because the world kind of shifted. And he was not able to take out a loan to start a new business for X amount of years. And the banks basically said, no, you can't. Meanwhile, in the States, of course, bankruptcy is not a pretty thing, but there's always a way back. And I feel like that sort of fail, succeed is the American story versus, do it right, fail. We don't talk about it. And that's more the German mentality. Now, what makes, I'm sorry, I think I lost the thread a little bit there. But I think what makes Berlin kind of, I think that the fact that Berlin has all the people that don't necessarily match into standard German sort of society come here is what makes that sort of iterative try, fail sort of mentality a lot more possible in Berlin. I think that, that's something that because everyone isn't necessarily trying to do that standard, more conservative, direct method of business, people are willing to try that. Also, the creative factor that is here, once more, the fact that I can just try things. I think that creative thing makes that fail, try, iterative thing much more palatable, much more reasonable, and it can actually fold into Berlin a lot easier than it could in other major cities, I think that's harder to do in Munich, it's harder to do in Hamburg, it's harder to do in Köln, to have this sort of, have this ability to just, try things independent of whether it's super successful or not.
You teach at the Code University, and I think this is way different universities from the universities here in Berlin or in Germany. And I can remember also my studies. I was very excited about starting my studies at my communication studies at the University of Munich, and I was so disappointed. So because it was about theory all the time, and I think so. The Code University was also founded as a kind of reply to this too theoretical computer science knowledge which had been provided by the others, by the other universities. So do you enjoy being part of the Code University?
Yes, absolutely. I find it to be a wonderful, different method of approaching learning. I think that the fact that it's very much a project-based sort of system. So the idea is that there's learning units available where you have basically the opportunity to have classes that will give you the theory to do what you want to do, but in the end they all work to help you create whatever project you have in mind. And that is a very refreshing way to approach that. It also means that it's very flexible, and it's very flexible. But I also find that students are able, because there is an actual goal, I think that students are able to apply, to basically metabolize the theory and apply it immediately. And there's not this awkward gap of like theory. Now you're out in the world and figure it out. There's something that's really nice about immediately saying, okay, use that theory, and that makes it really nice. And I think they have, depending, it's fairly, like I said, it's a very flexible sort of institution, and I find that usually students have like a project per semester, or a project that they join or something like that. And because they have many different projects to try and to apply these sorts of things, I think they're able to get a lot out of it. And especially for the new modern style of working, I think that's really, really helpful, far more helpful than the way the standard, more conservative, like you said, theory lessons.
So we have talked a lot about the work life, and maybe it's the last question, which is related to this, but also to the social life in general. So because if I take a look at what Elon Musk, for example, is going to do in Brandenburg, so with the Tesla factory, and I also heard a lot of criticism about how he treats the colleagues, how that he was expecting that it would be so fast, so with all those allowances and permissions and so on and so forth. Yeah. So, but it was not the case. So, but I think so. They say that that Germany is also a social state. So, do you feel it? Do you feel it here in Berlin as well? So, because I know you have family, you have 3 children. So, just do you feel comfortable here from this point?
Yeah. No, I found that there was definitely some sort of cultural sort of obstacles to get over about how people engage with each other, and also how people how close people are willing to be, and the speed of that. I find that that in the States that social connections are fairly smooth and easy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can meet someone and have a nice close conversation fairly quickly. Mm-hmm. And of course, in Germany, I feel like there's a little bit more of a stepping when it comes to social.
Oh, really? Yeah. So
from my feeling is that there's a little more of a step where you have a really clear thing where it's like, that's this Bekannter, that's someone that I know,
mm-hmm.
that is a foreign, someone, a colleague, like there's a very clear stepping, and enger Freund, that's something it's very clear stepping, and it took me a while to figure out how to short circuit that, to be perfectly honest. How I can find a way to still come in contact with people pretty smoothly and pretty easily. Mm-hmm. But I think I have that now, and a lot of that came from just time, just talking to lots of people, and also honestly, my wife is a Berliner, and she helped me understand Berliners, specifically, and I found that was really helpful, and I definitely feel in Germany that of course there are things that connect Germany naturally, mostly being language, but coming in contact with someone from Köln is very different than someone from Hamburg, is very different than someone from Munich, is very different than someone from Berlin, or someone from Leipzig, for instance. All of them have different rhythms, and I think over the time I've learned how to enjoy those different rhythms and how different people come together. And I think that it's been a really fun adventure. I did have a period where I was really frustrated with the city, but once I got past that and found my space here, I'm here. I don't think I'm going anywhere else.
But when were you frustrated with the city? So I will tell you my story. So because actually, so for the first 3 years, I haven't understood whether Berlin would be the right place for me. Mm-hmm. So, but now I'm sure that this is the right place. Mm-hmm. So, but. So first 3 years were kind of shaky. So what was it the same with you, or?
Well, I have kind of 3 phases. I had and the first couple of years was very much I found it fascinating. Mm-hmm. It is a city that has all of its layers of history are just laying right there for you to look at. You've got imperial history. You've got what's it called? You've got First World War, Second World War. You've got the division. You've got modern Europe. All this is happening all in the same place. So I found it very fascinating for the first few years. I was just trying to figure it all out, and then I found the social aspect frustrating for years 3, 4, and 5. Mm-hmm. And then after that, I started saying, okay, let me take a step back and figure out how I can actually do this my way in the city. And then after that, I found my rhythm, and then so definitely I think there was 3 years of fascination, 3 years of frustration, and then a awkward step into actual full conflict.
So but then you have felt comfortable in Berlin for 11 years so far. No, not 11, 9, almost 10.
Almost 10.
Almost 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. Which is well, that happened.
Okay, good. You started as a hand-drawn visual artist, so now you have been working with the visual effects. So, how different or how similar are these two sides of the two worlds, two sides of the coin?
The reason why I ended up in visual effects is that there was something that was generally faster, a little bit more technical. So there was traditional animation is definitely more of a craft-based skill, where it's a bit more like like cabinet making or something that's like his craft, is how well you're working with your hands to get this to work. And there was something that was exciting when I started to do visual effects. I was just kind of like, oh, we can try this, but maybe we can just do it this way. And there was something that was kind of fast and kind of exciting about that. The two worlds I find, visual effects is definitely that sort of fast, speedy, exciting sort of world, and animation is more artsy. It's a little bit more. Animators, like traditional animators, tend to be a lot more observant. You know what I mean? They're really watching how people move. They're seeing people. They're trying to understand how this movement is, and there's something that is. It's also a little bit more solitary, you know, because you're sitting there hunched over your table, you know, drawing, you know, and in that regard, there's something that, I mean, it's funny because I've come back to traditional animation and this sort of thing, especially through teaching at Code, where I've been like, oh no, there's something that's really beautiful about seeing the fine nuances of how people move, knowing the difference between, you know, someone is kind of tense and trying to get an idea in there, or kind of moving very smoothly, and seeing how people move and what that says about them. I find it to be really fascinating. So I found my way back to that. And in visual effects, they're observing in a much more technical sort of direction, you know. They observe it more in the kind of way it's like, okay, well, if we have to comp this, like, okay, that light is over here, it's diffuse, so the highlights on your head is going to be a little bit shinier, and then you have to kind of adjust the levels to make you know, so there's something that the comping idea is something that I really enjoyed about that sort of thing of trying to, it's a bit of a magic trick of trying to be invisible. I've always said that if no one sees my work, then I've done my work well. And I found that to be really kind of exciting and much more, just a faster, more exciting sort of flow.
We might be doing a little bit of post-production for this video.
Oh, okay.
I'm thinking to myself right now.
Well, we're putting a green I'm wearing a green sweater. I've done terrible things.
So visual effects is your current profession. So, but do you still practice hand-drawn animation?
You know, for many years I would try and do a hand-drawn animation once per year. Honestly, with kids and time and everything, it's a little bit difficult to find that moment. I have found my way into doing more digital character animation. So I've been doing 3D animation and stuff like that on the side as my own personal projects, and enjoying doing that. So that's been my weird way of getting back into, you know, my traditional animation roots. In the end, digital animation and traditional animation, although the methods were quite different, they've come together, and now there's such a blend between all of them. I think that in digital animation you have more granular control about how things move, and in that regard you can, not more granular control, but I guess a different sort of control. And I found a way to blend those two skills together. So all the stuff that I know is traditional animation, traditional animator has definitely very much helped and informed what I do now with digital animation. So
I'm looking forward to the new Avatar by James Cameron. So from this point of view, so
you know, as a visual effects person, yes. Yawn.
Yes and no.
Yes and no. Is that at this point what I think that what Avatar did in, when did it come out?
2010.
10? Isn't that what?
Yeah,
okay, 2010. What that really did is that it proved that anything is possible digitally. And I think that the 10 years in between there has just continued to prove that anything is possible digitally. If you toss enough people at it, and enough time, and enough effort, and enough money, honestly, you can make anything possible. There are things in that are from the CGI, from the computer animated side of things, that are just so observant about the fine details that it is deeply impressive. Honestly, I thought Avatar was just an okay movie. So I'd say my excitement is kind of a little bit curved. If it comes to a big blockbuster sort of visual opus that I'm fascinated by, I would say Dune is much more interesting. The next Dune would be more interesting. So they were doing stuff with visual effects that is equally grand, but also much more subtle and really, really cleverly done. And I found that was the movie that really impressed me. Avatar's going to be gorgeous. There's no doubt about that. But let's see. Let's see. Maybe it's a good movie.
So I think Dune is a a kind of more movie to reflect.
Yes.
I would say. Yeah.
Yes, maybe that's just speaking to my own taste as far as a film lover. So I think that's maybe more of the thing. James Cameron has done fantastic films in the past, and of course, Terminator, True Lies. All those are amazing movies. His two biggest movies, being Avatar and Titanic, are oddly enough my least favorite of his. But the man's still good. I'll definitely see it.
Look, still back in the Soviet times, so we had the so-called stereo cinema. So in my hometown, St. Petersburg, and so where you could see the 3D movies, watch 3D movies. So then there was a great expectation that there would be another wave of revival of this 3D animation and 3D movies after James Cameron's Avatar. So, but it didn't happen really. So just why?
Well, I can tell you specifically why 3D films, for my mind, don't work. Is that I think the shots in Avatar, especially, that work the best are the shots that felt deep rather than the shots that popped out. And I think that basically what happens is that when you treat everything as deep, I prefer that sort of 3D. But the thing is that our eyes are not designed for cuts. If you have a movie that's making a cut, your eye then has to readjust to a new depth. As human beings, there's never a situation where we're just going to go blink and then we're someplace else and we have a different depth and things are popping out instead of popping in. And I think that if you have cuts in between stuff that's deep and stuff that's high, or even just different deeps, it gets tiring, to be perfectly honest. As much as I, there came a point where when I choose a movie, I'd say, do I see it in 2D or 3D? And I went for 2D because that allowed my eye to interpret the depth through the natural forms of cinematography. And you're kind of forcing depth in and out constantly from cut to cut to cut to cut, even if it's just depth. There's a certain point where your eye's just like,
I can remember this feeling here, so it was very tiring. And of course, if the movie is long enough, and, for example, Avatar is going to be 3 hours. Yeah, so it would be hard.
That would be tough. I mean, in the end, I know that Cameron was one of the people who did it best. I think he had a really solid understanding of what he can do, and he was really subtle with the sort of depth of how much he's pushing from shot to shot. But this also kind of hampers you as a filmmaker if you know that if you want to do a big master shot of like something big and dramatic and deep, and then you need a reaction shot, and you gotta like squeeze the focus down here and then squeeze the depth out here and focus. I think that's really tricky, and I think Cameron did a really good job of handling that. And I think that 90% of people who did it afterward did it. I can think of the only other person I think that really handled 3D really wonderfully was what's it called? Gravity. What's the director? He's a wonderful director. Mexican director. Forgive me. Okay, sorry, name's just skipping me. Yes, Gravity. That was a film that really handled 3D really well, but also because it was treated as one shot, the whole thing. So, well, virtually one shot. The first 20 minutes of it is one shot. In that regard, the depth makes sense and it has a huge effect. And I think just the cutting versus depth, I think kind of clashes sometimes. So as much as I was completely excited by Avatar because of the idea of this depth sort of thing and of 3D depth. And Cameron was a great speaker to it, but I didn't quite look at that way.
Okay, back to the real world.
Yes.
So because you're a very social person, so and this is the channel about international networking. So what are your networking secrets?
So I'll be honest. My whole thing is that I definitely am more of a face-to-face socializer. Of course, I have social media and stuff like that, but I find that there's a huge value in being face-to-face with someone and talking to them and really figuring out, not figuring out, but learning who they are and sharing and finding a commonality between each other. For me, networking is really been about just meeting people and enjoying people, to be perfectly honest. That's what it comes down to. I find that I tend to, if you were to put it to secrets, I don't know if it's, if we put it to secrets, I would say more likely that asking questions. Finding out what people are doing, where they're from, what's important to them. I find that is something that that definitely helps kind of connect me with other people, and I think that's for me the fun and the enjoyment in it. For one thing, it is fun and enjoyable, so that's what definitely makes it a thing. I don't know if that's a secret per se, but I think there's a curiosity in people is always going to help networking.
Curiosity and good fortune.
Indeed.
That brought you today. So I'm very happy that we connected.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you very much for this interview.
Yes, thank you for having me.
And all the best. So this interview is going to be published after the New Year celebration. But still, we can wish all the best to our audience. So for 2023.
Yes, enjoy start of 2023. Yeah, when you see this video.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.